With multiple locations, you can't be there to solve every problem. You can't be there to fix things. The way that you have to communicate, it just has to be so much better. It has to be so much more clear and concise and specific. And people need to really understand this is what he wants me to do, because you're not able to be side by side with your team every day.
John Farkas, what's up, buddy?
I am doing outstanding.
You are on fire. I was just to let the cat out of the bag, but we have some new AI analytics that can pull from our CRM and financials. And I was looking at your 3 gems just a minute ago, just as a sample.
Scary stuff.
They all looked really good. So congrats.
All right.
Highest retention in the brand. It was. I think we had, as a test run, we connected like 15 gems. And far and away, like retention wise, which also means your revenue was high. Do you have a dad joke?
Who does Beyonce call when she needs her roof repaired?
I don't know.
All the shingle ladies.
Oh, God.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's actually pretty funny. You know why eggs don't tell jokes like this, like you and I?
Why?
They crack each other up. It's so bad.
All right.
Oh, perfect. John's such a stud. I was like, hey, man, I want to have you on the podcast. There's a million things we could talk about because you do a lot of things. You came up with a great suggestion. What is that suggestion?
We should talk about the 5 keys to multi-unit success.
I love it. I think a lot of people listening to this are either looking at doing multiple units. They're either already with Alloy and they're like, boy, I'd like to do more, or to figure out that formula. And people that are looking at Alloy have aspirations of multi-unit. So if it's going to be 5, what's number 1?
It's all about the people. Everything, it's all about the people. I think the first key is just knowing your team, their goals, and their motivations. You have to paint a big enough vision for the people on your team. You know, as a good example, I've got 4 fitness directors, and I can tell you that 2 of their goals is to make a little bit more money so their spouse can cut back on their work. One of them's trying to buy a new house. One of them wants to start a new family. But the fact that just knowing, you know, right off the top of your head, like what are their goals? What motivates my people? What are they wanting to achieve? That's important as a leader. You have to understand like what your people want and then help connect the dots for how can your business help them achieve their goals.
One of the advantages of multi-club ownership is that you do have a bigger vision. Has it allowed you to attract better talent having a bigger vision?
Oh, without a question. Fitness is kind of a weird field. Traditionally has like all these stepping stones to where, you know, well, I can be a junior VP of whatever, and then a senior VP of whatever, and then a VP of whatever. Like It's just in the fitness industry, we tend to run relatively flat organizations. And so by having multiple units, you can open up opportunities for people to advance and grow within your organization. To go back to your point, like absolutely you attract better talent. And so I think it gets people excited about, man, I'm joining a team that's growing, that has goals and is going to do great things. And so absolutely, without a doubt, it will help you attract, as long as you can communicate that vision clearly, it can help you attract better talent.
Intuitively, it makes sense, but I think it's more nuanced than it sounds. It's all about the people.
All about the people. You have to know what are their goals? What are their motivators? What are their fears or concerns? It's really not that much different than how we interact with our clients. I view our organization, coming from a personal trainer background, it's like I view my team, those are my clients. You know, I used to be the trainer nerd, training all the clients. Right. And now it's like, okay, my clients are my team. My job is to help motivate them, help establish clear goals, hold them accountable, point out their blind spots, just like you would, you know, with a client. Like, hey, you need to keep a food journal, or you need to get in here more consistent.
Right.
It's different, but it's also the same.
In a parallel world, it's the same thing. And in some ways, I would argue that by treating your team that way, you're teaching them how to treat the clients that way.
The better you take care of your team, again, the better they're going to take care of the clients. Throughout the year, periodically send a selfie video to different members of our team. Just, you know, hey, like, awesome, really proud of you for doing this. I write all handwritten cards at Christmas, and, you know, every note's personalized. I like to think that the message is something that's meaningful. And again, it's specific to that person. And it is, there is a lot of overlap between how I treat them, and that's how I expect them to treat our clients. And I think what we were talking about earlier with the retention, I think it's paying off.
If that's the key, then it's certainly working. So what do you have for number 1 on your 5?
So number 1 is just knowing your team, their goals and motivations.
Okay, so that was number 1.
Last thing on that, I would say, like, from a motivation standpoint, this also works when you're coaching your team. With my directors specifically, I feel that we have really good relationships. They've all been with me at least 2 years, and one director extremely competitive. So when we're talking about, like, hey, we need to increase our member count so that we're in the top 5, like, everything's a competition. And so it's all like, hey, if you want to be the top alloy gym across the country, like, this is what you need to do. Another director loves helping people. Is the only thing that matters is helping people. Doesn't care about competition at all. I'm not going to speak to that director the same way. Everything, if a mistake's made, we're going to talk about the consequences of how that mistake may negatively impact the client. And the message is going to resonate a lot better than if I was trying to approach this person talking about how you're going to lose the competition. I think to be an effective leader, to some extent, you do have to treat everyone differently. And again, that starts with, like, what are their goals? What are their motivators? And use that to help lead them effectively so that, again, you both get what you want out of this working relationship.
It reminds me of the stories about sales that you've seen where the guy goes into the dealership to buy a Corvette. And he's like, oh, you're going to be so sexy in this thing when you put the top down. You're going to be picking up all these ladies and all this stuff. And the guy's like, I'm buying it for my daughter. And he's like, whoops. You should probably find out what the motivations are, because the end game, the selling of the Corvette, is still going to happen. And to your point, the performance of the director is still going to be elevated regardless of what their why is, right? So the end result is the same. It's not like the person that's more concerned with clients versus the competitive side. They both manifest themselves in the same way. It does involve, well, we'll get to know your team. Mm-hmm. Like, what do they want? And then when you talk to them, you can speak to what's happening in the business and their motivation through their lens, not yours.
Yep. Absolutely.
And we've talked about that. Even in fitness, I think we always make the mistake, especially when we were single club owners, and you would think like an owner, right? Like, you want to drive margin. And yes, you're helping people too, but it's also, hey, I got a business to run. So you go to a coach and you're like, if you just bring in this and that, I'll pay you this. It's like a transactional conversation, right? And it just falls flat because a lot of people in those seats servicing clients care more about helping people. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But if you don't know that, then you're speaking to them about something you think will motivate them that would motivate you that doesn't motivate them. It's just emotional intelligence at the end of the day, but at a leadership level.
Absolutely. Yep.
What's number 2?
Number 2 would be all about setting clear goals and expectations, making it clear, like, this is what needs to happen in order for us to succeed.
Give me some examples.
I'm a huge EOS fan, and it's all about having, starting with your quarterly rocks. Well, I guess starting with your annual plan, then breaking that down into your quarterly rocks. So you've got your, annual plan, and you can go even bigger, 3 years, 10 years. And we do that. We have a 10-year goal. We have a 3-year goal. We talk about our annual goals. We spend the majority of our time, though, we don't spend a ton of time talking about those. The bulk of our time is more spending on, like, the quarterly rocks. We live in a 90-day world. Everything's like, what's our focus for over the next 90 days? And so all of our studios have very clear quarterly rocks. We keep it simple, 4 to 5 at most. So it's not per studio.
Per studio.
Each person has at most 3.
Got it.
And so again, it's not this laundry list of here's the 45 things we need to achieve in the next 49 days. Typically it's 4 to 5 things at each studio. And then within that, each person can own no more than 3. And so these are the 3 things these are their quarterly rocks. From there, we have a monthly dashboard, kind of a monthly, check-in. How are we doing? Are we on track? Are we off track? And then we have a weekly scorecard. It's more leading indicators. It's more behavior. These are if you think like process versus outcome goals, we want to focus on the process. What are the habits, like, showing up to the gym 3 days a week, keeping a food journal? What are the habits? Same idea, with our team. What are the things that they need to do on a weekly basis in order for us to both win? So we track those numbers weekly. We talk about it in our meetings weekly. Hey, this number's off track. Like, what's going on? What happened? What are we doing to get on track this week? And then we talk about it. It's not some 2-hour conversation. It's like, a minute. We go through it. We make those tiny adjustments on a week-to-week basis in order to try to hit those scorecard numbers. And then we move on and do it again. And so we're just trying to win 1 week at a time. And we know that if we win 13 weeks in a row, we're probably going to have a really good quarter. And if we win 4 quarters in a row, we're probably going to have a really good year. But it's important as a leader to establish what are those goals and are they crystal clear? We're here for Franchise Training Week, and I've got one of my coaches here, and I was talking earlier and I kind of put him on the spot really quick as an example. And I was just like, hey, what's our retention goal this quarter? And without skipping a beat, he was just like, 97%. I'm like, oh, yes. One, you didn't embarrass me, so thank you. But I was like, this is risky if he doesn't get it right. But my point being, everyone on our team knows what are our quarterly rocks. It was like 97%. It's one word answer. And that's what, as a leader, to someone that is trying to do this, I would just say, go to your team. If you ask, like, what are the quarterly rocks? If you get that deer in headlights look, it's like, all right, well, now you know what you've got something to work on. Everyone on our team needs to understand what are our quarterly rocks, and then are we on track or off track towards them? We're always talking about them. We're always doing progress updates. Once we do our monthly dashboard, I send a newsletter out to our entire organization every single month. It recaps all of our numbers. Here's our leads, revenue, sales, cancellations, retention. How many Google reviews did we get? How many sessions did we train? It has all that information. What's our progress on our quarterly rocks? Where are we missing the boat on some things? What do we need to work on? What's going really well? All this is broken down each month, and it's like a 5-page newsletter that I put a lot of time into. I wanted to be crystal clear, like how we're doing. Are we doing well or are we not doing well? Again, it's all about setting clear goals and expectations. Everyone knows what are the goals, how are we doing towards those goals, and also what are the expectations? What do they need to do in order to help us win? How many accountability sessions? How many Google reviews, phone calls? How many businesses do you need to reach out to? How many people do you need to ask for referral? Like all of that should be clear. We've done a decent amount of interviewing over the last couple of years, and what's interesting, one of the questions I ask interviews, it's been awesome to see the answers, but it's also been a great teaching moment for me. Describe the best boss or manager you've ever had. What were the characteristics that made them effective? And then they'll go on, and then follow-up question is that, tell me about the worst boss you've ever had, worst boss or manager. What were the, characteristics or traits that made them ineffective as a leader? And the response, you just see the same thing over and over again. And with the poor leaders, it's the response from the employees' eyes. There weren't really any clear expectations. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing. So many things were just like left up in the air. People want to know what they're supposed to be doing. And the better clarity they have on those expectations, they're generally going to show up better because they have the confidence knowing that it's like, okay, sweet, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what winning looks like. People want to keep score. They want to know how they're actually doing. That just comes from like clear goals and expectations.
It always reminds me, like when you don't have that as a leader, and then what you feel from your team is chaos. And it can feel like they're sort of out to get you or they're not listening to you, but you really just haven't provided any clear expectations, right? Mm-hmm. It's the old assumption that it's ignorance before malevolence, just meaning like your team wants to do a good job. They're not out to make your life miserable and to not meet expectations, but it's your job to set those expectations, be really clear, right? And then I like the fact that you keep their quarterly rocks, which for anybody listening is just nomenclature from EOS. It's just basically what's their objective. Right? What are they working on right now? And to your point, it's usually process oriented, but there is a metric that is a result of that. So the reason that you have the highest retention in the brand, I pointed this out at conference because it's not coincidental. You also do the most accountability sessions in the brand. It's like, well, do you think those things aren't, related in any? Of course they are. You meet with clients more often to ask how they're doing. You have the highest retention. And there's a bunch of things already in place that you just have to do them. But again, it's the old Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed. If you're not measuring it and they don't know what a win is, there's no clarity, you're not going to get there. And I know this sounds like the most Captain Obvious thing ever, but clearly looking at, you coach a lot of businesses, right? Inside of Alloy and out, you speak on conferences all over. A lot of people seek your advice. It's not as common as you might think.
No, it's really not. Sometimes you could say like it's the curse of knowledge. Sometimes I think it's just like, well, I know what I meant, therefore I just assume they know what I meant. I think as humans, we oftentimes don't communicate as effectively as we think we do. But yeah, people they want clear expectations. They want to know what winning looks like. One of the ways that this really hit me was a few years ago when we were talking as a team about asking for more referrals. And it's like, all right, guys, we need to get more people in here. Facebook marketing, it's a dumpster fire. We don't know if it's going to be good or bad. So how do we work around this? Well, we just need to ask for more referrals. We're on board. Yep, we're asking for more referrals. That is what we're doing. And then a couple weeks goes by and I'm like, how are we doing on the ask for referrals? We're asking. All right, well, we haven't gotten any. Okay. A couple weeks goes by. We're asking for referrals. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I thought we were going to be asking for referrals and we're going to get referrals and they weren't coming in. And then finally it hit me and I asked the question. So Rick, let me ask you, when you say you're asking for referrals, how many people are you asking? And the response was like, I ask like one person every week. It was like slapping myself in the face. I was like, oh man, that was completely my fault. When I said ask for referrals, I wasn't specific on what that looks like. To me, asking for referrals means you're asking minimum 10 people a week. Minimum. Like that's bare minimum. But again, I didn't communicate clear expectations. And so my team's coming to me like, we're asking for referrals. And I'm thinking like, man, so we're asking for referrals and it's not working. So what's the problem? And it was simply because I wasn't clear on the expectations. And they weren't lying. They were asking for referrals. Unfortunately, they were only like asking for like 10% of what was necessary in order for us to get the outcomes we wanted. And once we corrected that, miraculously, ever since, we've gotten a lot more referrals.
Again, ignorance or malevolence. Yeah. In this case, ignorance. And you are insightful, and self-realization is learning and growing is what you're all about. So you're like, hold on. And you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, that's my fault. Right.
Yeah.
And it was. And you fixed it.
Yep.
But it all started with you being organized well enough to look in the mirror and be like, what's the real problem here?
Right.
I didn't set it clear expectations.
Expectations. Yeah.
What do you have for number 3?
Number 3, it's all about communication. We were talking about like owning one studio. You and I both started with one location, and I owned one location for a little over a decade before starting with Alloy and expanding there. And the communication across multiple studios, it's completely different. It's like you're living in a totally different world. When you have one location, and assuming you're fairly involved with it, something, like you see something wrong, you can go correct it. Something bad happens, you go have that conversation with that client. You can pick up the pieces when mistakes are made. You can kind of keep everything together. You can coach your team up, because if you have a question, I'm 10 feet away, you can just come ask me. It's not a big deal. The fact that I didn't communicate clearly isn't a big deal, because you can come ask me a question. With multiple locations, you can't be there to solve every problem. You can't be there to fix things. And so the way that you have to communicate, it just has to be so much better. It has to be so much just more clear and concise and specific. And people need to really understand, okay, this is what he's trying to get me to do. This is what he wants me to do. So again, you have to communicate so much more effectively, because you're not able to be side by side with your team every day and just, solve those problems as they come up. It's like you have to plan for them in advance and you have to coach them in advance. There's just so much more that goes into communication. And if you haven't done it before, or again, in my case, when we opened that gym number 2, there was definitely a learning curve for me where I'm like, man, why is the team not doing what I want them to do? In hindsight, I realized I was not communicating effectively. Something that I picked up from you many years ago before Alloy was hearing in your talks, the idea like the chief reminding officer. And I still continue to do this even more and more. I say fewer things more often. And so I'm not going to, during our team meetings 10 years ago, it was like, here's the list of 20 things we're going to talk about today. And guess what? None of them got done well, because you're talking about 20 things. Whereas now in our team meetings, we always have a weekly lesson. It's on one thing. It's hyper specific. It's hyper condensed to, like I said, one thing we're talking about. It could be all on just selling the benefits of the exercise. That's all we're talking about today. Next week, it might be around modifying around injuries, or how to ask for referrals, or how to ask for Google reviews, how to handle walk-ins. But we talk about one thing per week. By kind of handcuffing myself to like, I'm only allowed to talk about one thing, it allows you to go much deeper on it. It's so much more effective. And you also have to keep in mind, like, we're dealing with humans. We're all flawed creatures. Our retention of information isn't that great. If I throw 30 things at you, again, you're not going to remember 29 of them. We talk about fewer things, but fundamentally it goes back to that chief reminding officer. We talk, all the time, constantly, the 7 core tenets, the selling the benefits of the exercise, making sure people are scheduled before they leave. The idea of like providing like constant touch points during the session and coaching cues and communication. The communication is around blocking and tackling. It's constantly going back to the basics. It's doing the fundamentals over and over again. And when you think you've talked about them enough, I promise you haven't. Just keep talking about them.
Sounds like every great sports coach that we follow, whether it be a Nick Saban or even this new Signetti guy who learned under Saban, it's process oriented, right? And you had to be dead simple, and you're going to have to say the same thing. And again, a lot of people refer to it, you're doing the boring work, but that's the stuff that moves the needle because you have to do it well. And you have to do it over time in mass to a point that if you just told someone that's what they would have to do, it could seem maddening, but it really is the key. So what it takes from an owner, like what I hear you saying, is to level up from a single location to multiple. There's a growth, obviously, that you have to go through, not only like intellectually, but emotionally as well, because it's fun to just talk about all kinds of fun stuff and do all these things, and to have to rein that in for the sake of simplicity and a clear communication. It's not easy. That's the thing. Like to you, you're like, oh yeah, just do it this way. But I'm sure there was a learning curve for you, and it took a minute to be, you had this friction, this weirdness, like, why are these people not listening, right? It's like, oh, well, it's my fault. So you're good that way. You look in the mirror, and then this is how you fix it. But that takes your growth. That's why we always say self-help journey disguised as a business, because like it's only going to go as far as you can go. And I agree with you about the one location, because I ran one location forever, and then we had 2 locations, and we started this licensing thing. It's a different skill set. And I heard somebody say this perfectly about franchising, that the biggest mistake that franchisors make, or that people that want to franchise their business, is they think that they're in the same business that they were in before, right? And I would say the same thing for multi-unit ownership. You think you're doing the same thing that you used to do in one location. You are not. I think you said it earlier. It's almost like you're doing personal training and then you open an Italian restaurant. It's that, it can feel that different, even though the thing that the mechanism does is the same. The further you get from it and the bigger scale you get, it's like you're running a separate business. Would you agree with that, or does that sound like a stretch?
Again, communication is so critical. I go back to what I was talking about during interviews, asking what's the best manager, boss, worst, and the thing that comes up most often is around communication. There's no communication from the worst managers. People describe the best manager you've ever had. They communicated well. They made it clear what they needed. They were encouraging, but also they held me accountable. And that's how people describe their best manager. Going to multiple studios, you have to level up your communication skills more than I would have 5 years ago never dreamed that I would put so much into communication that I do now. But again, when you're not side by side with someone, you have to communicate so much more effectively. You're still having in-person conversations, but you have to back it up with, video resources, with written resources. You have to communicate in ways that your staff will understand the information. Part of it's just the chief reminding officer and the volume. Part of it's knowing what not to say, not throwing 30 things at someone.
I was about to say, a lot of it is a deduction of things, right?
Yes.
So it's like, instead of adding to, you would think like, man, now I have 5 gyms, there's gonna be a lot more to talk about. It's like, well, there is, but it's your job to distill it down and actually talk about less.
Yeah, as we've scaled, there is more to talk about. And yet, as I do our annual planning, and it's like, what are our staff meetings for the entire year? I map those out. We have what's called a weekly focus. Every week, this is the one thing we're focusing on. And it could be referrals, could be Google reviews, could be all on greeting people when they come in the door. It could be, we have a rule, every coach has to send 5 text messages a day. Just applauding. I don't care what you say. Talk about, hey, Rick, you went up 10 pounds on your goblet squat.
Great job.
Hey, Rick, I know you were exhausted. You didn't get much sleep and you still came in first thing this morning. Props to you. So we have a weekly focus that's all on the blocking and tackling, getting someone's next workout scheduled, or making sure, we're holding them accountable to their goals. We're saying less. Let's put more effort towards fewer things.
And you can say them louder, if you will, because they're that important. But yeah, the more you say, the less effective you're going to be, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a skill. You're now almost in a different business. I know it sounds like a strange way to say it, but you are literally in the business of creating a vision that other people's visions can fit under, and giving them clear directives on what to do with the outcome in mind, but it's still process oriented. Again, it's like every great coach you hear. It's like you don't focus on the outcome. You don't focus on, we're going to win the game Saturday, but like you don't talk about how. You just focus on the process. You do your job, right? And if you do that, then good things are going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's why both you and I are so obsessed with Nick Saban. It's like he's like the best example. And I think that's why we both appreciate him so much or have so much respect for him, is just his obsession with the process. And I think when you look at his track record, love or hate Alabama, whatever, it's not about that. But when you look at his track record, and I saw just last week in the college football semifinals, all 4 head coaches worked underneath him.
Isn't that crazy?
I don't think that's by accident.
The cascading effect of his influence is huge.
It's unbelievable. And I have so much respect for someone that can keep it simple and obsess over the process so much.
Yeah, so many great stories come out of that for sure. All right, what you got for number 4?
Number 4, which kind of, we kind of have already hinted on it a little bit, but it's just removing the noise. Your staff is a resource. Your people are a resource. They only have so many hours in the day. And so I look at it as my job as a leader is to remove the junk. I need to get as many things out of their way as possible so that they can focus on the things that are really going to move the needle for us. Going back to the retention, what moves the needle for us? It's accountability sessions. So I need to make sure they have time for accountability sessions. We don't have them responsible for anything on social media. My wife and I and our VA, we take care of all our social media because do we have to do it? Yes. Like posting stuff on social media, is it necessary? Yes. You need to do it. At the same time, I'm afraid that if our directors were doing that in studio, that's going to take away from the conversations with the clients. That's going to take away from doing the accountability sessions. I want to remove as many unnecessary things from their plate as possible so that they can double down on the things that really move the needle, like building community, like conducting accountability sessions, asking for referrals, asking for Google reviews, even, making phone calls to leads. It's kind of like the 80-20. What's the 20% of the tasks that they need to do that are going to get them 80% of the results? It's like, I want you to obsess over taking care of our community, obsess over our clients, and we want to remove as much junk as possible. Otherwise, I conduct still 99% of our interviews because again, I don't enjoy interviewing. It's exhausting. It takes up a ton of time, but I think about man, if my directors had to do all that, they're not going to do any accountability sessions. They won't have time to do the things that really help us. And so again, I want them to focus on the, make a better burger analogy. Yes. I want you to focus on making a better burger.
And I'll do inventory. I'll order the beef. Yeah. I'll make sure that the refrigerator's working in that scenario, right?
We use Slack for our internal communication. We'll do what do you guys need? And then we go get it.
When you say we, for people listening, if you're in one location, the we might be you, but the we could also be a team. You have, just so happens that your spouse is a rock star in her arena, right? Which is, again, building all kinds of imaging. She's great with, everything, right? It's imaging or customer facing. She's really good with that. So you've got that advantage. But then you also mentioned you had a VA. So it's not like you're doing this all on your own. But what I love about this is your message of take the unnecessary things that aren't the biggest rocks to move the needle forward with retention, which is money and everything else. Take that off of your director. And I would love our brand to even hear that, louder for the people in the back kind of idea, because I think when you're hiring this director, it can look like a very simple model. So I think early on, maybe some of our owners put too big a burden on the director and they wanted them to sell, to keep the place clean, to call if the HVAC unit was messed up, to also do social media posts. It was a litany of things and it just buried them. Mm-hmm. They didn't pick, again, to focus on here's the 3 things I really need you mainly focused on. And then to have the insight to say, well, it's my job to take all of the less critical things. They all need to happen, but there is a hierarchy for getting to the end game, which is helping more people, making more money. I need to pull these things off of their plate and do them myself. And myself can mean you with a team or whatever. But the point is you're not putting that burden on the director. And I think that's great advice for someone with 1 location and certainly with 10 locations. Would you agree?
Absolutely. On some level, you can't be great at 30 things. And so again, I want to put my directors in a position to succeed. And part of that is giving them more capacity or more bandwidth to do the 20% of the things that really move the needle forward for the business. And like I said, just all the extra stuff I can, just get it off their plate, do anything I can to take the shots for them or anything I can do to protect their focus and their bandwidth, I think is extremely important.
That could have been number one and one for me. I love it. It's a great message. Yep. What's number 5?
Number 5 is the best ability as an owner is availability. We've heard that in sports, like the best ability is availability.
What do you mean by that, if you don't mind?
Man, you got to be available.
Now, to your team.
Yeah. Again, I'm going back to the interviewing piece. I interviewed someone just last week and they're like, my boss, I saw them 2 times in 3 years. I'm not saying I'm not in the studios every single day at all, but if someone needs something, like I'm probably going to reply within pretty quick notice. If anyone on my team has a question, has a concern, has a, I don't know how to handle this situation or what would you do? I am very easy to get a hold of. When I'm gone, I don't tell my team I'm gone. And the reason is because I don't want them to not want to bother me.
So if you're gone, say you guys take really awesome vacations, you like to hike, so you're typically out away from people, out in the woods or whatever that is. If you got a Slack message with a question and you were on vacation, would you still respond?
To me, like, oh my gosh, yeah, instantly. Like whether I'm at home or away, it's no different. I am going to reply as quick as I possibly can.
Well, I knew that. It's a rhetorical question, but I think it's good for people to hear. So what would you say to the owner who, let's say that we're coaching an owner and it's a critical time in the business. It's pre-sale, right? And you've got a lean team, as an Alloy does, Absolutely. And it's all hands on deck for pre-sale. And maybe you've got to process people, get them through, do the in-body, measure the way they move, get them leveled into the programming, the way that we do it in our systems. What would you say to the owner if we were giving them the advice and said, well, you need to lean in this function, like maybe you take sales for a week so that your team can get these people processed and get them leveled in correctly for the workouts. If the response to that suggestion was, well, that's what I hired them for, that's not my job, what would you say to that person?
On one hand, it's like your job is to run a successful business. As a business owner, like to me, it's there's not really like these clear guardrails, like don't touch these things. There's certain tasks that I do more of or less of. But, out of necessity, if it's like, again, during pre-sale or an employee had, a death in the family and you're gonna have to step in. And so to me as an owner, it's just a win at all cost. There is no like, I don't do that or I hired this. I'm going to do whatever needs to be done for us to win, like no matter what. At the end of the day, it's your business and you get the good and the bad that comes with that. I don't want to take this dark, but like, I would say due to social media, most people, they see all these highlights of like business owner on a beach on their laptop. I'm like, most of that's crap. That's not what it is. It's work. If you want like truly passive money, it's like, cool, put it in index funds. Like, there you go.
Buy a real estate syndicate, throw some money at something.
That's just not owning a business. A business owner, it's like you have to do whatever it takes to win. And that's how I look at it. When it comes time where, maybe it's during a pre-sale, maybe it's when, like I said, someone's on vacation or someone's sick or something happens, you might have to step in and do stuff that you don't normally have to do. Now, if that's going on for like forever, I would say like, all right, there's probably other problems in place, whether maybe you're not setting clear expectations and clear goals and communicating properly. Things are going to come up and you have to be willing to accept that it's like your job as the owner is to do whatever it takes to win.
Well, absolutely. But I think that from our standpoint, that's what we would love to hear is like, listen, it's temporary, but whatever it takes. It's a business. Living, breathing entity. It needs nurturing and attention and all the things. To your point, it's not a passive investment, right?
Right. It's not a passive investment. Definitely not. Thinking about like during normal times. And again, I've got a great team. It wasn't like it was just, you just hire people and they just miraculously do everything perfect day one. Like, no, that's not how it works. It's about building trust and working together over time and playing to people's strengths. But again, fundamentally, I am available almost 24/7, 365. Like right. I would not, and I tell my team, I'm like, man, if you have a question, like do not hesitate to contact me. Again, I go back to when we travel, like I don't tell my team I'm gone because I do not want them to hesitate to contact me because ultimately, if I'm hiking off the grid, all right, maybe I don't respond in 5 minutes, but you're probably going to hear from me in, still 2 hours, but it will not be days.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever like went days and not gotten back to someone like on our team.
It's good to hear it from someone who's done it. So last question, this isn't on your list, but I'm just curious. What do you think is the most valuable lesson that you've learned going from one location to multiple and now having sights on even more and more. If you had to distill it down, I know it's difficult, to the one thing that you've learned that's been most important or maybe most profound for you, what would that thing be?
One thing. This is tough.
Very tough.
I think it's all about your people. And by that, I mean, you have to hire good people. You have to train them properly. And part of that, I would say that's the clear goals, clear expectations, chief reminding officer, holding them accountable, communicating with them ongoing, and giving them the resources and tools they need to succeed. And this is kind of like talking out both sides of your mouth, while also like not micromanaging. Give them everything they need to succeed, and then let them do their job. If you're coaching them properly and setting clear expectations and that job's not getting done, then unfortunately you might have to have a much worse conversation, which sucks, right. But it does happen. But again, just give your team the tools and resources, the direction, the guidance, the expectations, and then get out of their way.
And that's been the biggest aha for you?
Oh, by far.
Has it been difficult?
I'm a control freak. And so with one location, anything that went wrong, I'd fix it or I'd jump in. For me, over the years, one of the things that's changed is having within reason, and it depends on the stakes, something where the stakes are higher, I'm more involved. But where the stakes are lower, like as an owner, I think you have to be okay with letting your people fail to an extent. And by that, I mean, I'm not letting someone fail at something that's going to ruin the business. A good example of this is years ago, anytime a client was upset, I was like, I'm going to go smooth that conversation over. I'm going to go fix it. And I did that. And you know what? The gym was fine. It revolved around me way more than it should, but the gym did really well. But it was due to more me doing way more of the heavy lifting than I should have. I would say I had a good job, not a business. And what changed was when those kind of more higher stakes conversations with clients, a client that's upset, whether it was due to a lack of results or due to like a poor experience with a trainer, I let my team start handling those. What was interesting was a lot of those mistakes, they went away because they now had to deal with the negative ramifications of a conversation. Like they stopped making some of those mistakes. And I think it was also because by having to interact with the clients, they also recognize, oh man, it hit home so much more because they saw like, oof, wow, when we give someone an exercise that's maybe not appropriate based on an injury, that's a real problem. And so again, a lot of those mistakes went away because they had to have these uncomfortable conversations. But that for me was something that it was really tough because I was such a control freak and because I wanted everything to be perfect. And I just had to realize that in order for us to help more people, I recognize that like I can't be the one doing everything. And so by letting my team occasionally make some mistakes and fail, it's okay. You made a mistake, that's fine. And let's talk about it and then move on. I'm not going to beat you up over it for, 6 months or a year. Be like, hey, remember that? Hey, idiot. Remember that mistake you made back in March? No, don't do that.
Well, I'm sure in doing so, you're also learning your skill around your stoic emotions, meaning small mistakes are going to happen. Whereas maybe in the past, one mistake would have caused a bigger reaction. Whereas now you're like, oh, that's okay. You've seen it before. That's not catastrophic. This is pretty common. It's a good teaching moment. You see it as something, you see it as a learning moment and an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to create more freedom for you and your team, as opposed to like, they've made another mistake. There are those mistakes where it's like, okay, that's not cool. But most of them are not catastrophic and are learning moments, but you have to have an infrastructure in place and your outlook has to be right for that to manifest itself that way.
I think it's tough as a new business owner. You don't know what you don't know. Over time, you realize a lot of the things that you get really worked up over, it's like, meh. Right. Me personally, how I've changed as a business owner over the years is that me now versus a decade ago, I never get that excited. I never get that upset.
Right.
And you just kind of, it's like good things happen. I'm like, sweet, let's enjoy the moment, but let's not throw a party here for the next week. And when things bad happen, it's like, that stinks, but let's course correct and get right back on track.
I think it's probably the top skill that you could develop is things are never as good or as bad as you think they are, right? It's like usually somewhere in between. And usually things are repairable by looking in the mirror first and figuring out what you could do differently. And if not, it's also sometimes just the course of business. Things happen.
I forget where this came from, but there's an inverse relationship between emotions and decision-making. And so the higher your emotions are, the worse your decision-making gets. So if you think about that, something bad happens and in the business and you get worked up. Well, you have to realize that something bad happened, and because your emotions are higher, your decision making is actually worse. So your ability to solve that problem because your emotions are higher is gotten even worse, which means you're probably not going to solve the problem effectively, which is only going to perpetuate it. When those bad things happen or good things happen, you kind of have to stay neutral. And the more you react emotionally, it's going to cloud your judgment and probably lead to other mistakes. And so that's where, if you can just kind of stay neutral, and if you can not let yourself get too worked up or too down, I do think it leads to better decision making, which is going to make you more effective as a leader and as an owner, which is going to help your business, over time perform better.
It helps you keep your sanity as well. It keeps things
That's
in
also
perspective.
Important.
It's a real good skill.
Maggie at home, the dog, she does not like when I yell. So for her sake too, got to keep those emotions in check.
That's right. It's a great skill.
Right.
Well, look, man, as a friend, I'm really proud of you because I've known you forever before any of this started, right? And so like to see you go from one to what you do now, it's almost like I've heard it described as you have a level 10 skill set in what was a level 2 opportunity, and now you're creating an opportunity that matches your skill set. It's like you see rise to the occasion, but really what you're doing is just like unveiling a skill that you had. It was just underutilized, right? And certainly there's areas of it, like still control of emotions. You shore up these other things, but it's kind of cool to see when you recognize it in someone else, then you see them realize their full potential, where you're like, wow, this is amazing. It's rare that someone actually executes all the way through and makes it happen. So like as your friend, I know it sounds silly, but like I'm super proud of you because I always knew you had it, but now to see it manifest itself and there's like way more in the tank than I thought. I'm like, geez, I mean, it's really impressive. And I mean that from the heart. Like it's awesome to see it. Obviously, we're proud to have you in Alloy. You're the president of the FAC. It just puts a smile on my face. It really does. So
well, thank you.
Props to you. And you're changing a shit ton of lives in St. Louis. You're helping a lot of people with Alloy. It's like, I think we have 13,000 plus clients now. And you think about the multiplier of that. If you just use the rule of 150, we've done that math. Heck, if you just look at the people you're about to open your 5th club, most of your clubs are at that 130 plus number. I mean, you multiply that times the 150 people they come in contact with and maybe one more stage. It's like you're influencing the entire state of Missouri and half of Illinois at that point, right? It's like, it's really awesome.
We talk about that as a team, and it's like, you have to recognize you're not helping our 130 to 150 clients. You're helping that 130 to 150 people. You're helping, they're going to show up better for their spouse. They're going to show up better for their kids or their parents and their coworkers or employees. It's exponential. And so when you think about that, it gets me really excited because we're not just helping these hundreds of people that are in each one of our gyms. It goes beyond that. And so when you think about that impact, that really gets me fired up and even just more excited for, the direction we're going and to continue to open up more studios. I'm thrilled to be creating more opportunities for my team to grow and the impact we're making and also in just having fun. The Alloy community we have, the network, it's awesome. I love it. I'm really excited just to see this thing just continue to take shape and have some really cool stories and fun along the way.
Well, and I can say without a doubt, without you and the brand, we're not where we are. So you've elevated the whole brand. I mean, we've got a monster, tiger by the tail. Like this thing's growing like crazy. We opened more than 100 locations. Only 2% of brick and mortars ever do that. But you've been such a big part of that. So I just want to publicly say to everyone how proud I am of you as a friend, but also how much I appreciate you. It's like, it's a lot. And we couldn't change lives without folks like you in the franchise, and you're top of the heap, dude. So appreciate you.
Cool. I appreciate that.
Peace.